2, 1.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the
Where is it?
post-show conversation for the Boston Asian American Film Festival's opening night, featuring everyone and welcome to the post-show premiere of Definition Please. We are so excited tonight to be hosting this special presentation. My name is Susan Chinson. I'm the festival director of BAAFF and the creative producer at Arts Emerson, speaking to you today from the unceded land of the Wampanoag, Nipmuc, and Massachusetts tribal nations. We are so excited to be here this evening. I'm here representing not only the festival, but each of the individual volunteers and staff that helped put countless hours into making tonight's presentation possible. If you had asked us probably even just 4 months ago, we weren't even sure we were going to be able to put this on. And it's with tremendous support that we've had from all of our sponsors, partners, and volunteers that have truly made this a special presentation for us to present to you this evening. We are so thankful for our co-presenters, Arts Emerson and the Asian American Resource Workshop, for all of their work that they've been doing to help support making arts and helping to support the Asian American community. Tonight's, while we have been trying to adapt to this crazy world in which we live in, there have been certain things that have given us opportunities to actually create in this virtual space. And one of those things has been able to realize a wish that we've had for many, many years. And that is to be able to incorporate having a special guest of Angry Asian Man, Phil Yu. He is joining us today to help us moderate this very special conversation. I'll now turn it over to you, Phil. Thank you and welcome to Boston.
Hey, hello. Thank you, Susan. And thank you to the Boston Asian American Film Festival for inviting me to take part in this special evening and to lead the Q&A for this really special film. So why don't we go ahead and introduce our guests from Definition Please. We have the pleasure of having with us the film's writer, director, producer, and star, Sujata Day. Sujata, you there?
Hi.
Hey.
How's it going, Phil?
It's going good. It's going great now. We are, in addition to Sujata, we are joined by 2 special cast members. We have Ritesh Rajan. Ritesh. Hey.
What up?
Welcome.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
And also fellow cast member, Anna Khaja. Anna.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi,
Woo.
Phil. Thanks for
We're all
having me.
here. Yes, so wonderful. So I'm hoping if you're tuned into this that you watched the movie already. Should we put like a spoiler alert ahead of it? I don't know, maybe. But you know, this is a really special film. Sujata, you are a force of nature in that you took on like, you know, dozens of hats to make this thing happen. This is your first feature, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we start first with, you know what, let's start at the top. Let's talk about the title of the film, Definition Please. Because if anybody is an avid spelling bee watcher like myself, you know that that's a pretty almost uniform strategy for spellers to ask for the definition. But the title also has a double meaning for sort of your film's themes. So why don't we talk about that first?
Yeah, I love things with, you know, metaphorical titles. So when I first came up with the idea, it was definitely going to be about this young spelling bee winner who grows up, is now an adult, and is a complete loser. So that was the gist of the idea that I had. And I did go through those kind of, okay, should I call it language of origin? No. What, you know, or should I call it, you know, can you put it in a sentence? No. So I settled on Definition Please, which was really great because that became sort of like the theme of the film, because Monica is on this journey of defining herself. She's defining her relationships with her mother, with her estranged brother, with new people that come into her life. And she's defining what her future is going to be. So I settled on definition, please, because I thought it had a really cool double meaning in terms of just putting the whole movie into one perspective.
You said the seed of the idea was this former spelling bee champion that's now a complete loser. I know that this idea started off as a sketch, right? At least the original seed of the idea.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I was in a UCB sketch writing class, and I had been a former just class spelling bee champion. So I won my 4th grade spelling bee, went to regionals, lost out in the first round on the word radish, and when I was at UCB, we were forced to write a new sketch every week. So that was, I don't know, eight sketches for this class. And I was scrambling for ideas, and I was like, okay, let me try to pull something from my actual life that maybe happened. And I thought it would be funny to do, there was a Where Are They Now MTV stars, so I was like, oh, what about like Where Are They Now spelling bee winners? That's funny, right? So then I just wrote this 4-page sketch because, if you look up the spelling bee winners, they're all, they're like poker champions, and they do crazy things with numbers, and they design robots. And so I was like, okay, I think it would be funny if one of these spelling bee winners was just like total loser, just like lived at home, wasn't really making money, and didn't achieve what she had been destined to achieve. So yeah, it all started with that 4-page sketch that I turned into a feature later on.
So making a feature is no small feat. Anybody who's a filmmaker will tell you, like, making movies is hard. But you managed to assemble, you made a great film, but you managed to assemble like a really incredible cast. And you and I know each other here in LA. We're part of sort of the same circle of friends. And watching the movie, I was like, oh, Sujata just got all her friends to make this movie. Like, that's how you make a movie. You got, you call everybody and call in all the favors. So you've got this great cast, including our Ritesh and Anna. So can you guys talk about how you guys came to the picture, and how your first reaction to say, like, I don't know, at what point was did you have the story? Did you have the completed script? Like, how did you guys get involved?
So I knew that Sujata was working on a script pretty early on. When we were working on our diverse film spoof, she had mentioned it to me, and a couple of weeks, months passed, and then she's like, hey, do you want to grab lunch? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then she's talking to me about this movie, and she's like, and by the way, I want you to be in it. Can you play my brother? And at that point, I hadn't read it. So I was like, let me read it first. But then I read it, and obviously it was a no-brainer for me. Just the subject matter it tackles, from the mental health to having the ability to sort of just take on such a developed and meaty character as a South Asian male. I don't get opportunities like this every day. So I was very, very excited and just happy to be on board with such a strong team.
Yeah, so Sujata and I we didn't really know each other. We had met, I think, once. We were both hosts at the same award show. And I'm not sure how it all went down, but I think that a mutual friend told her about me. And then she emailed me, and maybe an offer came in from my agents. And I've played a decent number of moms. I mean, I guess, I played a decent number of moms. And so sometimes if that's like what the tone of the character is, I'm like, you got to pay me a lot of money to do this. Like, this isn't going to be just for creative expression. Right. And so I said I would read this script, and then I was so beyond pleasantly surprised, and actually then hungry to do it. Because a lot of times when you pick up a script and you see a POC character, at least from my opinion, they tend to be an idea on the page. And a lot of times it's the same idea. It's sort of like you can beat by beat just say exactly how it goes and who the person is. And then you as the actor do your best to bring your own individuality or some kind of individuality or nuance or reality to that. And that is exactly what I did not see here. What I saw here was a true individual character who I had never seen before. You know, Jaya is, she's Western and modern, if you want to put it that way. She's connected to her culture, but she's connected to her culture on her terms. And she wants to see her kids succeed, but she's not she's not pressuring either of them to be the model minority child. She wants to see them happy. She wants to have fun with them and play with them. And she's not coming down on Monica because she's not, you know, dating an Indian boy and all of these things. She's kind of interested in who she's dating. And at the end of the film, not to give it all away, but I'm assuming people listening have watched it, you know, she even like dabbles in a little bit of weed and tries smoking some with her daughter. And so it was just so refreshing on so many levels to see a nuanced human being depicted on the page that I could then sink my teeth into. So I was really excited to say yes.
Sujata, one thing I noticed about the movie on my second watch now is that, and I think I knew, I could feel this from the first time, but the second time I really pinpointed, like, the movie at no point ever really problematizes being Indian American, right? Like, that's not a thing that, like, which happens a lot in a lot of movies about people of color, where, especially like Asian Americans, but like where you come up and clash with whatever, your parents, your culture, your community. I don't ever get the sense in this movie that that's something that's one of the things that Monica is actually, you know, is hanging over her. Of course she has her community, but I never feel like they are what's getting in her way. You know what I mean? I mean, family,
Yeah.
of course, family is family gets in all of our way in a lot of times, but her culture is never ever that impediment, right?
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I can never relate to movies and film that have that, you know, push pull, like, oh, am I Indian enough? Am I American enough? And that's not something that I grew up with personally. I did go to very white high school and grew up in the white suburbs outside of Pittsburgh, but luckily enough, about like half hour to 40 minutes away from me, there are 3 Hindu temples. And I was going to one or the other on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And I was taking Bharatanatyam classes on Sundays at the temple with my Indian girlfriends. And I went to Hindu temple summer camp. I was going to Indian parties all the time. Right now is Navaratri, and I would be going to Garbas and doing dances. And so I had this amazing childhood where I feel like I had the best of all worlds. And there was never any bullying about like eating samosas at school. And then there was never any being too white for the Indians. Like that was just like never in my scope of what I experienced. So in definition, please, I was like, yeah, it's not, the conflict is never going to be about being Indian. She's just going to be who she is. She, you know, appreciates her culture, as you can tell, but she also, you know, is living her life as an American person. And so I thought it was really important for me to show like, hey, this is another side of us where we're not like torn between like arranged marriage and stereotypical controlling parents who are telling us exactly what to do. I mean, there's a little bit of that with Mira Simhan's character and Pyle, which is, you know, a relatable thing as well. But I didn't want her, Monica, being Indian to be in her way. I wanted her as a person to be in the way of herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, this film tackles 2 things that I feel like Asian Americans don't really like to talk about, which is mental health and mediocrity. It's just, uh, Monica's story is not the one that people brag about amongst their friends. Parents don't go in that direction with what your daughter is up to. But the mental health storyline, I mean, which is a major part of the film, that's something that I feel like Asian Americans in general, we shy away from at a dangerous level, in an alarming way. Ritesh, your character is definitely like the most delicate needle to thread, I think. I mean, there's so many ways where you have to be very careful in the way you portrayed him. What I love about your character, what I love about Sonny, is that there are times where you're like, dude, this guy is so cool. I would love to hang out with this guy. And then there are other times where like it feels very how do I say this? Kind of I don't know, what is it? Like there's a danger, like something kind of incendiary that could happen. There's a potential that makes you nervous when he's in the room, and you thread that so well. Can you talk about how you kind of prepare for this role? Sujata told me that you actually have medical professionals like in your life that you talk to, right?
Yeah, both my parents are doctors. My dad is one of 8 siblings. 6 of his siblings are doctors, and all of their spouses are doctors.
Talk about
what happened to you, man? What happened to you?
Yeah, I really screwed up. So when you talk about being mediocre, you're looking at it right here. So it was, and just side note, my parents are super supportive. I'm very lucky. So I was able to just quickly go to them. Obviously, I spoke to Suj first. The first thing that I always do is go through the text, see what clues are in the text. What are other characters saying about my character? Obviously, looking at the context of the film and what's causing him to have these emotional outbursts, and at the same time, what is he going through when he's not having these emotional outbursts? Is that something that he for me, I diagnosed, or through my research and talking to psychiatrists and therapists and psychologists, we came down to borderline personality disorder. And for me, wanted to play him, Sonny, kind of in a position where he wasn't stable. So the moments that you're seeing him in a positive light, you don't know if that's what he actually is supposed to be like when he's healthy. Just because people who do go through this illness, they swing back and forth. So they don't have a stable 5. They could be at a 1, but their 1 could be happy. You just don't know. That's up to their personality. And kind of after talking to Suj, the biggest goal that I had was sort of representing the character with authenticity. I didn't want to show mental illness or use it as like a gag or a ploy. People who do struggle with this have to live their everyday life. And, they have moments of happiness, and they have moments of stress, and they have moments of sadness. And it was just, I wanted to make sure that everything that I did was rooted sort of with intention. And whatever that was setting him off, there was a reason for it. It wasn't just because he was sick, and just make it sort of like a trigger word, but rather there was emotional currency involved to whatever set him off.
It's so the family dynamic is something that is, I love the way your sibling relationship and then the parent relationship is portrayed in this movie, because it's not because this is like a major thing that has happened something has happened between all of you, in the past, and yet like it's just there, but nobody really is addressing it head on. And then you're going about doing really mundane shit, like stuff like going to the supermarket or and then so it's always like this thing that's just there, and you're dancing, and I'm like, this is so real. This part feels so real.
It's the superpower of all Asian families, the hide. Just sweep it underneath the rug.
Can you talk a little bit about exploring that dynamic? Because there's a lot of movies about 20-somethings stuck in their life, don't know what they're going, but they're like, this part of it, I think it's what really makes this movie, you know, kind of relevant and real and refreshing for like an Asian American family story, I think. Can you talk about wanting to go down that road? And then the other part of the other thing, maybe, so we, for in interest of time, like maybe you could talk about the device of using the spelling bee words throughout the film, because I that's something stylistically that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of the spelling bee words, I'll tackle that question first. So the spelling bee words, that was just the thing that I had envisioned very early on, in terms of, even, after getting the title of the film, I was like, oh, well, she's going to use these words to define unfamiliar situations in her life. And so when you get to the end, you find that she's really shocked that now her brother has become unfamiliar to her, and why is it happening in this moment when it usually just happens with strangers. So I really wanted to use that to tie in, the entire premise of the film and the theme, but also to pull it at the emotion of like, okay, so the story is really about these two siblings trying to get along and the love that there is between them. I think in terms of the family and it being very real, like I really just, I'm so inspired by films that are independent films, like the Duplass brothers movies, or a couple sibling films that I looked at was like Skeleton Twins and You Can Count on Me and The Savages. And so I loved these kind of sibling / family relationships where even in those films, no one's really talking about what's really going on. And that's so interesting to me, because you can see it in their emotions or you can see it in their faces, but it's never quite said, which is something that I find interesting when I'm watching films. And I really felt that Jaya's character was such an anchor for all of that, because she was the one holding us all together. And so I feel like Anna can kind of help answer that question as well.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning or referring to the fact that the film takes place on or approaching the 1-year anniversary of the father's death, and how it's such a time of leaving something behind and then rebirth, right? Like there was a status quo that had to be kept with the father there. And now he's been gone. People have been in mourning, wanting to take better care of each other, more worried about each other, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think that memories are coming up for the kids. I think they're coming up for Jaya too. I think regrets are coming up. I think pressures are building in Sunny. Now all of a sudden, these things can come to the surface, and we can let things go and move forward and change. And that's how I've always perceived the position in time that this family is in with regard to what you were asking.
In addition to the family drama, the film is like quite funny. And the thing that is actually that sticks in my mind is how, forgive me, it's really horny. Like Monica is like such a thirst. She's so thirsty, right? She has like a thirst. Like throughout the film, there's just like these moments, like the spelling words are very like used very strategically. I love that about her. Could you talk about writing that and then writing that for yourself? Like
yeah, that's so funny, because I think I saw that. People bring it up afterwards, and I'm like, oh, I didn't really write her character to be like super horny, but I guess that's how it's like coming off, because she just continues to meet all these sexy men in her life. And so the comedy was definitely added. Like when I was going through, when we were editing it, I was like, oh, this is really funny. And it's coming, either after a really dramatic moment or before a dramatic moment. And so I'm just I mean, I'm a feminist writer in general, so I like to turn the tables on who you are like marking as sexy in a film. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, when I cast Ritesh, I mean, he's a good looking guy. So I want, you know, my I want audiences to, you know, be looking at a pretty face. And then it was really fun to cast, you know, Jake Choi, who's a mutual friend of all of ours. And it was, you know, I'm trying to break stereotypes. I want to, you know, lift up Asian men. And so that was really important to me. And then Tim Chu, I've known for a very long time, and he's always done plays, and he's doing SEAL Team 6 right now. And I just, you know, gave him a call, and I was like, oh, this is like a hot Asian guy. I'm going to put him in this one scene and it's going to be great. And he also happens to look like a doctor too. So there was just like a lot of moments like that where I guess subconsciously I was, you know, casting a sexy guy, but I was also turning the tables on how patriarchal film can be, with like a one-liner for a sexy girl in a bikini to come in and then she's gone for the rest of the movie. So I suppose I was definitely working towards that.
Yeah, it's really not that common to see a South Asian, East Asian sex scene. It's, you know, it's,
Yeah.
I think it's great that you did that. And I also think that, like, I mean, this is almost an exclusively Asian cast. You know, this is like even Lilane is a Filipino. I just think it's so cool. You did that in a really different and unexpected way.
Yeah, and that was purely, you know, I want to say it was by accident, but maybe it wasn't. You know, this is I like to say this is what happens when you put women of color in power. They will just kind of accidentally fill the cast and crew with marginalized individuals that have gotten a chance just yet. So I was happy to do that. Lilane was my number one choice to play that best friend. And so, and I was just like, oh yeah, she was on Lizzie McGuire. Cool. So we have, you know, her entire kind of Lizzie McGuire fan base has been really excited about seeing the film as well. And so it is really exciting to have a film that's almost entirely Asian American cast, pretty much by accident, by just, you know, like you said before, in terms of casting, I just texted my friends and it was all my friends who happen to be Asian American.
And it's not that big of a deal. Like what you see on screen, you're like, what's the big deal? Like, it's great. And then we can move on. We tell a great story, right? Like,
And there are all sorts of different characters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're all Asian and they're all different sorts of characters.
so we
Who
have
would've
some
thought?
questions. We have some questions from the audience.
Oh, okay.
So we got one here. Oh, here's a good one. Sujata, what was the biggest challenge juggling both acting, directing, and writing and producing?
The biggest thing that I came across was not any of the creative stuff. So I will say not acting, writing, or directing. Writing, I had the shooting script pretty early on, and then I didn't touch it after I had sent it out to actors. And then directing was really fun. And I had a great DP that I had movie dates with, and we discussed the look of the film, and I really trusted him in terms of the cinematography. So that was great. And then acting wise, I just made sure to memorize my lines. and I was like, okay. And I also knew acting wise that Tesh had the heavy lifting, because I wrote that in mind, knowing that I was going to have a lot to do. So I would just be kind of having to react to him. But I never want to produce again. so unless I could be like a vanity EP on something where you like don't do anything, like that would be awesome. I think one of the hardest things was getting off the 12-hour shoot day and then having to prepare for the next day as a director, looking at my shot list and also looking at my lines, but then also having to get on the phone with investors, making sure that their money was being wired into the bank so that we could like pay for Crafty the next day. So that was a part of the filmmaking process that I did not enjoy. I never want to like think about the money again.
The money that makes it move.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have a question here. Oh, I have this question as well. It says, was the showing of Richie's butt in the original script? Was it in the original script, or was that an improvised set decision?
You know what? Most everything was in the script. And that was one of those things that was in the script. As a director, I kind of didn't bring it up to Jake. And he just read the script and said yes. But we didn't really talk about it. So then the day of, he was like, okay, so like, you're showing my butt, right? And I was like, yes, you're agreeing to do this. Cause I just kind of assumed like, oh, maybe we would cover it or whatever. And then he was super, free and open with it and so cool. And it was really great because I feel like we lit it very well. And Brooks did a great job with that. Kind of looks like the sunlight's coming in through the window, just like on his butt. And so Jake was really happy with that scene as well. I just thought that it was really great that he was just open to doing it. And yes, it was written in the script.
Nice. So we're running low on time, but I can ask another question from the comments. It says, can you tell us about the credit song Bracelets that closes out the film? We hear there's a Boston connection to the song.
Yes. So I did a whole thing about Googling Indian American songwriters, bands, Indian American singers just in the US. And I was looking through Spotify, I was looking through SoundClouds and just kind of scouring the internet for any kind of songs. And I happened to come across Mini Dresses and I was listening to Bracelets and I was like, oh, this is it. This is like, if we're talking about like me being inspired by Duplass Brothers movies, I was like, oh, this is like the Indian version of that cool indie film song. And it's got just like this indie rock vibe that I loved. And then I wrote to them, it was just like a contact form on their website. And they took a while to get back to me, but they were like, oh, this sounds cool. Like, tell us more about it. And they're from Boston. They were telling me about the Brattle Theater. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to premiere at the Brattle Theater. That would be great. And so they were really excited that I wanted to use the song. And I was just so happy that they allowed me to use the song because that was definitely, I wanted that song for the closing credits. That was always the plan.
Very cool. Shout outs to Boston.
Shout out to Boston.
Okay, so we're getting short. We're got to close it down. So Sujata, if maybe you could tell us about the future of this movie, and then Ritesh and Anna, maybe you could talk about, and Sujata as well. I mean, what's next for you guys? Anything you want to share? Any projects down the line? So go.
Yeah, in terms of for the future of this movie, we are on the festival circuit, baby, and I'm loving every single second of it, and it's really exciting. It's I'm so grateful to be a part of, especially Boston Asian American Film Festival, but even all the other ones we're doing have been really fun. We have a couple Pennsylvania ones coming up, which is, our home state, and we shot there. So that's really exciting. Throughout October, November, we'll be playing film festivals. So check it out. If you happen to live in Pennsylvania, you'll be able to, watch and stream there. And you can find out all that information on social media. We have Definition Please, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And what's next for you, Sujata?
Oh yeah, what's next for you?
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, it's quarantine. I wrote a couple scripts during quarantine. I wrote my second feature. So I want to kind of, when it's safe, I want to shoot my second feature and, just pitching shows, same old, same old.
Awesome.
I have been writing a lot. I've finished my third draft of a pilot and I'm on to the next one. And I'm also actually yesterday, another feature that I'm in, a post-apocalyptic feature that I'm one of the leads of called Rumble Strip, just, what do you say, launched on all the different viewing platforms. You can basically find it anywhere. It's called Rumble Strip. And so check it out. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Cool.
What am I up to other than playing hours of video games? I've been pitching a TV show currently, so hopefully someone will pick it up, and that'll be on television screens in the next couple of years. Hopefully everything goes well. And then I had a movie drop on Netflix, Barbie Princess Adventures. I'm the voice of Ken. So we've got new episodes under Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures, and then a movie called Barbie Princess Adventures. There's a lot of adventures going on with Barbie and Ken.
When you embarked on your acting career, did anything that you just said, was that in your mind that's something you could do?
No clue. It's funny, when I watched the movie, I was home in New York, and I was watching my dad watch the movie. And I was like, I wonder if he ever thought that his son would one day be the voice of Ken. My dad grew up in like the city in India. I'm like, wow. I had a really movie moment. I was like, wow, did he ever think, 30 years ago that his mediocre son would be the voice of Ken?
His non-medical
exactly.
focused son.
That's awesome. Okay, well, that's all the time we have. So thank you so much to Sujata Day, Ritesh, Rajan, and Anna Khaja for this awesome conversation. Okay, don't forget to cast your audience vote for the Audience Choice Award by clicking on the button at the bottom of your screen. Spread the word and love for Definition Please, hashtag BAAFF 2020, and hope to see you at all the great films throughout the weekend. And may I just add, everybody, please vote in the upcoming election. Just vote your ass off. Okay. Thank you so much, Boston Asian American Film Festival, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.